Hey everyone, and welcome back. So today, we're going to be reviewing DUNGEONOID for the Nintendo Switch. Now just to begin, DUNGEONOID was released on December 25th of 2020. Its normal list price is $6.99. However, as of filming of this review, which is January 3rd of 2021, it is currently on sale for $4.54. Also, just before we get started on the actual review, if you do end up liking this video, please don't forget to hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. Now, how to describe DUNGEONOID? Well, ultimately, it is an Arkanoid-based arcade game. If you've never played Arkanoid, basically it's very simple gameplay. You control a paddle that you move from right to left at the bottom of the screen. There's a ball bouncing throughout the screen, and the only point is you have to not let the ball exit the bottom of the screen. At the same time, you have to send it up in different directions to destroy all the blocks that are on screens, basically by making contact with the ball. So the basic gameplay mechanic can't be any simpler. However, DUNGEONOID does do a fresh twist on this classic gameplay style. And they do that by throwing in various objectives and also some RPG elements. Now, for the basic gameplay in Arkanoid, rather than having to destroy all the blocks, you basically have to get to the exit door. How you make that exit door appear will have a variety of different mechanics. Sometimes it'll be as simple as eliminating all the blocks. Other times you'll have to find a secret key that's hidden in the stage to unlock the exit door. And sometimes you'll have to go even as far as eliminating a boss character. There's even a few other secret objectives, but I don't want to spoil everything in this review, so we're going to leave a few surprises. And as promised earlier, like I said, there's also some RPG elements which basically are represented primarily by skills that you'll be able to unlock as you progress through the levels. And ultimately as well, experience points that you'll be able to choose where you place in your game progression. For example, you can choose to give yourself some extra life meter, or then again, you can even increase the power of your special abilities, increase the damage done by a basic hit with the ball, and lastly, even increase the chance of receiving positive power-ups versus negative ones. So gameplay-wise, that's pretty much everything you have to expect from DUNGEONOID. So first, as usual, let's talk about a couple of the elements that I liked about the game. Now, first of all, I really like the graphical presentation. It's done in 8-bit retro style, but it's done in a very clean 8-bit retro style. And it works perfectly with the overall gameplay from a Arkanoid style game, because ultimately this is a retro arcade style of gameplay. And ultimately, although the controls are very simplistic, they are very responsive and smooth. You even can accelerate the speed of your paddle by holding down the B button, which is very much appreciated for this type of game. And lastly, I'm going to put the music in a positive element. However, it's not anything to write home about, but it does fit with the overall presentation of the gameplay, and there is a decent variation in the tracks, meaning that the music does not become repetitive during your gameplay. Now let's talk about one of the elements that I actually liked a little bit less about the game. And it's ultimately the balance between the different levels that sometimes felt a little unfair. First of all, just to better explain, there are two types of gameplay. You can either play the story mode, which gives you unlimited continues and will save your progress, meaning that you can keep progressing through the stages and come back to the gameplay anytime and continue where you were at. And there's the second format of gameplay is a high score mode, which basically gives you no continues, and the point is to get as far as you can in the game without losing all your lives. Now, although this is a simple arcade style game, because the setup between the levels is so varied and depends on so many different mechanics, some of the stages just really end up feeling unbalanced, meaning that they feel more dependent on the luck of the draw and getting the right drops than actually increasing your skill at the game to finish them. And don't get me wrong, overall I did enjoy this game greatly, but there were a couple of moments where I would get really frustrated and I would get stuck on a stage having to redo it 4, 5, 6 times simply because I wasn't getting the right drops that allowed me to progress through it. And then I would progress on and finish the next 3, 4 stages without even dying once. And it just gives an overall feeling of frustration when that happens. And there are really only specific stages, as I said earlier, that because of their overall layout, just feel really unfair to the player. And the second minor critique I would have is that the overall way that they chose to have the power-ups work in this game is that you have to get certain drops, and when you accumulate at least 6 or 7 of the power-up drops, well, then you can unleash one of your special abilities. But ultimately, because it takes so long and so many drops to get your power-up, and that these power-ups are dropped randomly, there are some stages where you don't even get to use your abilities once, while other stages, because of the luck of the draw, you'll get to use your ability 2 or 3 times. Once again, I would have preferred a more balanced approach by either maybe toning down the power of your abilities but allowing you to use them more often, or rather than your special abilities be dependent on the drops you get, maybe have a sort of timed ability where every 45 seconds you can use one of your special abilities. But overall, that is a feeling of mine. Some people might like the balance they chose for the game because when you do get those special abilities, they do feel very, very powerful and they impact the stage in a very significant way. So now overall, I've got to say that I was pretty pleased with the package that was offered by DUNGEONOID, especially at the price that they're selling it, only $6.99. The game offers you 40 levels, and depending obviously on your skill and your ability with this type of gameplay, you've got at least, I would say, 5 to 6 hours of gameplay, because some stages, as I said, are really going to be dependent on luck, and you'll have to play them more than once to get through them. Also, what surprised me about the game is overall the variety of objectives that they managed to fit in the package with such simple game mechanics. I was really expecting only 1 or 2 different alternating objectives, and overall throughout the gameplay I came across at least 6 different types of objectives to manage to get to the end of the stages, which was actually pretty surprising, as I said, with such a minimalistic overall gameplay. And I've got to tell you that I was actually really excited for the release of this game because Arkanoid was one of the classic arcade games that I really enjoyed. But I did feel like it needed a fresh injection of something new to really bring the gameplay to a more modern audience with a varied set of objectives. And ultimately, I do think DUNGEONOID gets to that point pretty well. So now we get to the rating of the game. And just in case this is the first video of mine that you're seeing, I don't give a numerical value to games, I give an overall statement that gives my recommendation on purchasing the games. If you want to see what all those statements are, take a look at the description of the video down below. You will have a description of all the levels and different statements I use. So as I do sometimes, this game is actually going to be getting a split rating. For someone who's not an ultimate fan of classic arcade games, I'm going to be giving this game a solid game. Ultimately, price for value, this game is pretty decent. However, at the same time, if you're not a fan of this type of gameplay, the frustration on certain levels could get under your skin and make you sort of dislike this game a little bit. However, for my fans of classic arcade games, I'm going to give this game a definite pickup. Basically, if you're a fan of classic arcade games, you already know the frustration that comes sometimes with just getting the bad drops, and it won't dissuade you from continuing on with your gameplay. And the fresh injection of new type of gameplay to a classic Arkanoid style of game is really refreshing and ultimately a really pleasing experience. So hopefully this review will have given you a decent idea of what to expect from DUNGEONOID and if you should be picking it up. Now if you did play DUNGEONOID and you want to let me know what you thought about the game, please leave it in the comments down below. It's always a pleasure to hear from all of you. Also, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you liked what you saw, please don't forget to hit that like button. It really does help out a lot. Subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you know when all my new videos come out. And as usual, I hope I'll see you in my next video.